Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 75th part of What If Deku Had a Robot Wolf. I hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 75, One for All Part 3. Izumi blinked as she looked around. This place was new, very new. Normally it was a black, endless void, not a room with rather nice chairs. Where am I? She asked. This is the vault, the first user replied. This is where One for All was born. Not a great place, isn't it? My brother locked me in here when I refused to work with him. You're Yoichi Shigaraki, Izumi said, pointing at the man. Second told me about you. Indeed I am, Yoichi said. It's nice to finally be able to talk to you one-to-one. Although, I wish the circumstances were different. Izumi nodded and looked around. There was only one person she didn't recognize, the guy she assumed was the third user. A man with light, cold gray hair tied up in a spiky ponytail. A black bandana covered his forehead, and a combat jacket with small escape tubes coming out his shoulders. It was then that she realized she was sitting in between Toshinori's incomplete vestige and the only other woman in the room. Despite only having ever heard her voice, Izumi recognized her from pictures Toshinori had shown her. Nana Shimura, Toshinori's master and the seventh user of One for All. You're Nana, right? Izumi said. The one who passed One for All on to Toshinori. Yep, that's me, Nana said with a smile before frowning. I'm sorry about what he said to you back on that roof. I would have expected him to have been a lot more considerate considering he was in your position at one point. But he didn't, and you died because of it. It's all right, Izumi said. I know he messed up big time, but he apologized for it, and he's gotten better. But he shouldn't have messed up to begin with. Nana said with a frown. He went through the exact same thing you did, but did the exact opposite of what I did. And you paid the price for it. If it weren't for ISA bringing you back, you wouldn't be here. Izumi blinked. You know about that? Maybe we should have told her that we know everything she knows, and said. Yeah, sorry about that night, Yoichi said. But, we know everything that's happened to you. Including what you endured before you got One for All. It's all right, Izumi said. I didn't know that this dash, she gestured around her. Will happen, but, I understand that you would want to know a bit more about your newest successor. Plus there's not much else to do here. Other than playing card games whilst I'm fighting for my life. If you're referring to when Himiko looked into One for All, we were playing Uno, but that was back when she drank your blood, not during the battle, Hikage explained. We believe she saw an echo of that when she looked into One for All. I can assure you, we weren't playing Uno during the Children of Blood's attack. Well, that's a relief, Izumi said. I was worried there for a moment that you lot didn't care about my safety. Oh, don't worry, we do care about your safety, Hikage said. Why do you think I let you use danger sense? You're our legacy, Izumi, Yoichi said. We'll do anything within our power to help protect you. Although it is limited. I understand, Izumi said. Even if it is limited, you've already helped me a lot, just by letting me use the quirks stored within One for All. Smokescreen, Black Whip, Gearshift, Danger Sense. All of them helped me greatly. But, why wasn't Danger Sense going off around that thing? It was, Hikage replied. It's just that thing was so dangerous that Danger Sense overloaded and wasn't working properly. Hopefully next time we encounter something like that Danger Sense works properly. What even was that thing? Anne asked. Not sure, but it was probably one of those hybrids, Yoichi theorized. A fucking messed up hybrid, Daigoro said. We could feel that thing's presence from in here. It was fucking terrifying. Way more terrifying than All for One ever could be. Be glad that neither of us are alien hybrids, Yoichi said. I dread to think what my brother could do with both all the quirks he has at his disposal and those alien psionic powers. He'd be unstoppable if he had them. That sent a shiver down Izumi's spine. She'd never seen All for One yet, but from what she'd heard, and from what she had seen these Semitics do, especially that freak they fought back in the forest, she would not want to see All for One with such power. He was already strong enough. So, you all know everything that I know? Izumi said. They all nodded. Yep, as well as everything everyone else knows. Privacy is a bit difficult here, Anne said. Especially when the only other things to watch in here other than what the current bearer is doing is watch what the previous bearers did. You have no idea how mad Nana was after Toshinori found out about your attempt, Hikage said nervously. Yeah, I believe I remember her saying she wanted to punch him, Izumi said. Oh, believe me, her punchers hit hard, Daigoro remarked. I'm going to punch him harder than the time I punched All for One's balls, Nana said. Instantly, all the men in the room, including Toshinori's vestige, crossed their legs. Izumi took the hint, that must have hurt, a lot. But it was All for One who was on the receiving end of the punch, so it was deserving. He turned you into paste after that, and said, giving her a side eye. Nana shrugged. It was worth it to hear him scream like a girl. A bit like that time Gran Torino faced down that puppy dog villain. Now that was funny. Izumi blinked. Wait, do you have embarrassing secrets on All Might and Gran Torino? Nana gave her a predatory smile. Oh, I have all the blackmail material on those two. Izumi smiled. This was going to be fun. Yes, All Might was her idol, but having some dirt on him would be nice. Okay, you two. You can discuss embarrassing secrets later, Yoichi said. We need to get back on topic, like how Izumi managed to get here. Izumi nodded. So, what happened? Why am I here? I thought my body was still covered in that black stuff? Before I answer that question, there is something I have to tell you first, Yoichi said. One for All doesn't just stockpile strength. It also stores the quirks and vestiges of all its previous users. Unfortunately, that thing you faced was about to try and consume your soul. So, to ensure both your survival, we were forced to drag your soul into One for All's core, prematurely making you a vestige like us. Izumi blinked. My soul was eaten by One for All? She asked, sounding horrified. We only did it to protect you, Yoichi said. Had that thing consumed your soul, we would not be having this conversation, and One for All would be stuck in your body, unable to leave. Izumi frowned. So, only I can initiate the transfer then. Yoichi nodded. As the current inheritor, only you can initiate the transfer to the next bearer. If you die in any way, shape or form, we may be able to control your body, but we can't initiate a transfer. Only you can. Izumi frowned. So, I'm part of One for All now? What does this mean? Am I dead? Well, you're kind of dead, but also kind of not dead, Hikage replied. We're not really sure what's going on, but we've never had to drag a previous user's soul into One for All and prematurely make them into a vestige like us to save them from being consumed by a monster before. So, this is new territory for all of us. As far as we can tell, it shouldn't really affect you much, Yoichi said. You should still be able to go about your daily life without much problem. But try to stay away from anything that could affect One for All itself, such as quirk suppressant tech or quirks that can erase it, like erasure. Because we're not really sure what such things will do to you now. Izumi nodded. Now that One for All was basically the only thing keeping her alive, anything that could affect it could now affect her as well. Crap, that meant erasure is potentially lethal to her now. That is a problem. She was going to have to inform the teachers about this. Okay, that's somewhat better being an undead monster, Izumi said. Anything else? It also looks like we can temporarily take over your body, Anne replied. But don't worry, we won't take over unless you ask us to. You can take over my body? Izumi said, looking surprised before a frown formed on her face. Who did it? She asked coldly. Who took over my body and made me kill that man? The second user showed no hesitation when he raised his hand. That thing tried to kill you, and your friends. I did what I did because unlike you, I am more than capable of taking someone's life. But I'm not. Izumi cried, tears starting to form around her eyes. I don't care if you did it to try and spare me from the pain, it doesn't change the fact that I still killed someone. It doesn't matter if I wasn't the one in control at the time. It was still me who took that thing's life. And now, I have to live with that. Izumi felt betrayed. Second was the first vestige she properly talked to. He was the man who made her aware that she would also be accessing the other quirks stored within One for All, who warned her that Gearshift was now dangerous and that All for One was still alive, if indirectly. And now he had forcefully made her take someone's life. It didn't matter if it was necessary, he still made her kill someone. And she wasn't happy about it. The second user frowned before he stood up, walked over to the nearest wall and stood facing it. Not out of disrespect or shame, but to give Izumi some space, and to make her feel more comfortable here. He did not expect Izumi to forgive him for his actions. What he did because it was necessary to protect her and those close to her. But it was clear she wasn't happy looking at him now, not after what he did. So, here he shall stand. Well, that's new, the third user remarked as he and the other vestiges looked at Second. You okay there? I'm fine, Second said. Just giving Izumi some space. Damn right she needed space. He made her kill someone against her will, and she was not happy about it. She didn't want to see his face again. Not for a long while. And there was no way she was going to allow him or the other vestiges to take over her body. Not unless she absolutely needed them to. So, other than you lot being able to take over my body now, what else has changed? Izumi asked. Well, you can more easily enter and exit One for All's vestige realm now, Yoichi replied. We should be able to talk to you more easily now as well when you're awake. You also now have full access to all of our quirks. That means you have access to both Float and Third's quirk, Nana added. I'm not exactly happy about it, Third said. But, I have no choice in the matter. You are now fully a part of One for All, and I can't stop you from accessing it now, he said. So, just so you don't end up killing yourself, my quirk is called FA Gene. It allows you to build up kinetic energy by performing repetitive movements. Said energy can be stored for later use. Just don't hold on to it for too long. Like Gearshift, FA Gene has been marinating within One for All for a long time and is a lot more powerful than it was in my day. So, be careful when using it. Izumi nodded, listening to Third's explanation. She wished she had her notebooks with her so she could write this down. This was so interesting. You'll also be able to access our memories as well, and added. Everything we've done whilst in possession of One for All is recorded. Oh, I see, Izumi said. I can watch all your fights. That was useful. She could both learn how the previous uses used their quirks and see their fights against All for One. Yes, they may not have won their fights against the man, but those fights were still useful to see as they would show her how the man fights. Information. That's how she's going to beat All for One. None of the previous users had access to One for All's vestige realm. Yet she did, and she was going to exploit the hell out of it. If All Might himself wasn't able to permanently defeat the guy, even with backup, then she would need every advantage she can get her hands on to finally bring him down. Maybe it's a good thing that she's having to deal with taking a life now. Because if she hesitates when facing down All for One, she's dead. People will be counting on her when she inevitably faces him. She could not afford to let them down. I'm feeling it's getting a bit tense in here. Why don't we watch some of our past memories to calm things down a bit, Hikage said before turning towards Izumi. So Ninth, what do you want to watch? A compilation of our funniest moments or Tashinori railing 8 hot alien women? Izumi promptly used her newfound ability to enter and exit One for All whenever she liked to yeet herself on out of there. She did not need to see All Might, the number one hero and her idol, having sex. She was pretty sure she was too young to be even watching such stuff. When she returned to the land of the living, she found that they were no longer alone. Her mother was there, sitting down next to her, and Achiko had woken up. "Izumi," Inko said with a worried look on her face. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Izumi said as she sat up. "Just a little shaken. That thing we faced in the forest, it was a monster." Inko nodded shakily, tears in her eyes. "Yes, I was told that the villain you faced was dangerous. I'm just glad you're alright. I couldn't bear the thought of losing you." Izumi gave her mother a warm smile. "It's alright, we got out of there alive." "Izumi, what happened during that fight?" Inko asked. "I heard mixed reports that you killed someone." Izumi frowned. "I'm sorry, but I did," she said, tears starting to form around her eyes. She didn't want to admit it, but it was by her hand that the villain died, and she had to take responsibility for that. Saying that a vestige of her quirk's previous users took over her body would not hold up in court. "I didn't want to, but he was going to kill us. I had to do something. I had to." Inko quickly moved over to her daughter and hugged her. "It's okay, Izumi," she said softly. "It's okay. It's alright," she said as she rubbed her daughter's back. Izumi cried as she buried her head into her mother's shoulder. "Why? Why does this keep happening to me?" she asked, tears falling from her eyes. "I just wanted a normal school year, but instead, it's villain attack after villain attack. I just can't take it anymore. Why couldn't my first year of UA be normal?" Inko patted her daughter's back. Indeed, why couldn't her daughter's first year of hero school have been normal? Well, as normal as hero courses can get. She would have pulled her daughter out by now due to all the additional stress she had been through. But this was her dream. Ever since she was a little girl, Izumi always wanted to be a hero. Inko had already crushed her daughter's dreams once before. She didn't want to do that again, not after she tried to take her own life. "It's okay, Izumi," Inko said softly. "It'll be alright. I'm here. I promise you, this won't happen again. The heroes will make sure of that." "Can you?" Izumi asked. "Can you promise me that this won't happen again?" She wanted to be able to be sure, to be able to promise her daughter that the rest of the year would be normal, but she couldn't. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know if the heroes could protect her and prevent this from happening again. But she had to have faith in them. Faith that the heroes can protect her daughter as well as society, especially now, as All Might closes in on retirement. "I'm sure of it," Inko said with a smile. Izumi smiled slightly, feeling somewhat relieved, but was still stressed out. She wasn't going to tell her mother what happened to her just yet, about her soul being taken by one for all to prevent it from being eaten by that thing. Today had been a stressful day for them and she didn't want to make it any more stressful. But, hopefully, that'll never happen to them again. Wait, Inko didn't know about the existence of aliens yet. Well, that would be an interesting conversation for later. She looked over her mother's shoulder and looked at Achiko. Her girlfriend was just staring at her with a shocked look on her face, tears forming around her eyes. She looked happy. "Hey, Achiko," Izumi said with a smile. "You okay?" "She can't talk, I'm afraid," Durandal said. When she woke up, a doctor told her to minimize thinking and talking for a few days. Apparently, when she went all Archangel on that guy, she almost fried her brain. So she has to take it easy for the next few days. Izumi nodded. She was still unsure of what Achiko had done, but it must have been something big if she had harmed herself this badly. Achiko meanwhile looked surprised and happy to see that Izumi was alright. Her smile was bright and happy, tears forming around her eyes. If only she could talk right now. "Mother, you might want to help Achiko wipe her eyes," Izumi said as she broke off from the hug. Inko nodded before she wiped the tears away from Achiko's eyes. "There we go. Now, I know you two would like to be talking to each other right now, but, Achiko, you remember what the doctor said? Not talking until you're given the okay, alright?" Achiko nodded. There were so many things she wanted to ask Izumi, like how she survived having her soul consumed by a heretic. She checked herself, but she was told not to read anyone's mind because she almost blew her own brains out using a power she had no control over, so rest was very much needed. She was surprised her fellow imps were able to get medical personnel down here so quickly.
So, what else has been happening? Izumi asked.
Well, UA's recalling all of its hero course students, just in case their summer camps get attacked, Durandal replied.
They'll be having the reminder of their camps within the safety of UA's campus. Additional security measures are also being worked on to help improve student safety. Wow, that was quick, Izumi remarked.
I knew UA could get things done quickly, but I didn't think it would be that quick.
This is UA we're talking about here, Durandal said. They're fast when it comes to things like this.
They can't afford for another camp to get attacked.
It's the HPSC that's going to be hit the hardest, Inko said.
They're the ones who said that Humorize wasn't going to be a threat to anyone.
Niz is going to have a field day asking them why they were so wrong about Humorize.
Just because they killed all their Quirkless members and were planning to bomb several cities with trigger bombs doesn't mean you can drop their threat level.
Morons probably thought that they weren't going to do anything in Japan, Durandal remarked.
Oh, how wrong they were.
This is going to negatively affect public opinion on them. Izumi nodded.
Ever since the Avalon War, the HPSC's authority had been drastically reduced. Their job hasn't changed, it's just a lot harder for them to affect things now. They were corrupt as hell pre-war. The post-war environment dealt with most of it, but people were still worried that there were some elements that had been missed. There was a sudden knock on the door.
The four turned to see a nurse standing in the doorway. Sorry, I'm not interrupting anything, am I? The man asked.
No, not at all, Inko replied.
Is there a problem?
The nurse shook his head.
No problem.
Just collecting some blood samples from the students who were involved in the attack. Just to check for anything harmful that may have entered the bloodstream.
Oh, of course, Inko said.
I'll get out of your way then, she said as she and Durandal walked over to the corner so that she wouldn't be in the way.
The nurse quickly got to work and drew 3 vials of blood from both Izumi and Achiko.
He was surprisingly quick about it, and had gathered all the blood he needed in about 2 minutes. There we go, the nurse said as he put the last blood vial into a box for ease of transportation.
No harm done, he said as he put his equipment away and got up.
We'll report back on our findings soon, but we hope that there's nothing to worry about. None of the villains had any quirks that could infect you with something, but, since there was Trigger involved, we can't take any chances.
That's good to hear, Durandal said.
Since Eri was affected by Trigger, it was a good idea to check everyone, just in case someone else has some in their system. Well, I'll be taking my leave, the nurse said as he stood up and walked over to the door.
Oh yes, before I forget, there's a young girl out here who seems to be waiting to come in.
Inko gasped, looking like she just remembered something. I almost forgot that she was out there.
Eri. You can come in now.
Eri quickly walked into the room, keeping her distance from the nurse.
Hi Izumi?
She said awkwardly as she walked over to her. Izumi blinked a few times before a smile started to form on her face and tears pooled around her eyes. She said happily before she hugged her tightly.
You can speak!
She cried, tears gushing out of her eyes.
God damn it! Durandal shouted. I don't have any buckets on me.
Whilst Izumi cried her eyes out at Eri having somehow regained her ability to speak, the nurse who had just taken their blood took out 2 of the blood vials he had taken and put them into his top pocket.
2 down, 20 to go. Tamura was pissed. He just checking the news on his phone and some fucking get attacked UA summer camp. That was supposed to be him.
The League of Villains was supposed to be on that headline, not this Humorize lot. He wanted to attack them, but knew he was denied his little bit of revenge after the USJ failure, all because he couldn't track where the students went. He was starting to get very annoyed that they didn't have a spy on the hero course. They would be able to get more accurate information on the students' whereabouts if they had an in on the hero course.
Something the matter? Curator asked as he walked up beside Tamura.
Yes,
there is something the matter. Tamura replied with a growl. UA's first-year summer camp was just attacked. I wanted us to be the ones who attacked UA's summer camp, not these fucking casuals. Damn it. We need to do something big, and quickly, otherwise, people might forget we exist. Curator nodded. Indeed, they needed to do something big. So far they had been doing things independently. As far as Japan was concerned, the volcano thieves and wild villains were working independently and weren't members of the League of Villains. They needed to change that. May I make a suggestion? Curator said, an idea forming in his mind. You are aware that it was Hummerais who attacked the camp? The same organization that murdered all of its quirkless members, leaving only those with quirks. Where a train full of their members was found in Russia. All of whom were found brain dead. And? Tamura asked, sounding irritated. What are you getting at? Didn't your doctor friends say that they were in need of additional bodies to help make more of those Nomu? Curator asked. Tamura raised an eyebrow. He did. How many Hummerais members were recovered? Curator asked. Tamura looked at the report more closely. Around 200. Most people with quirks who joined Hummerais did so because they had powerful quirks they could not control, Curator explained. Perhaps they could make useful Nomu material. Tamura smiled. Yes, this had potential. Over 200 brain-dead bodies, just lying there, their powerful quirks going to waste. It's not like anyone else has a use for them, they're all brain-dead. They'll just be taking up space. If anything, they're doing the hospitals a favor, because they won't need to waste bed space on people who are brain-dead. They could make around 60 Nomu with them, if each Nomu had 3 quirks used to make them. But that's only a rough estimate. They could make more or less with them. Plus there were bound to be a few failures along the way. Plus Sensei might want to take a few of their quirks for himself. But still, that was a good number of Nomu. What else could the world use those people for? Compress. Tamura said with a smile, turning towards the showman. How many objects can you have compressed at a time? Mr. Compress turned towards him. As many as I like. Tamura grinned. That's exactly what he wanted to hear. Time to engage in some good old body snatching. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 76. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.